The no BS way to self-publish your nonfiction book in less than a year. Let's follow those dreams, people. Come along with me. I'm going to self-publish my second book this year, and I want you to do it with me. Hi, I'm Steph. I'm a name consultant, a content creator, and an author of a book called Names Don't Have a Gender. I do have my title for my second book, but I'm not sharing that just yet. I have wanted to be an author my entire life. When I was looking to self-publish the first time back in 2022, I couldn't find any information on nonfiction books. Everybody was talking about fiction, which is like character arcs and tropes and themes and chapters. And for me, I'm writing a baby name book. And maybe you're writing a self-help book or an advice book or a personal essay book. But whatever the reason, you might not need information about fiction books. So this is for people specifically who want to do it quick. They want to just get it done, get it out the same year, and they might be willing to spend a little money. I said we were going to do this fast, but I didn't say it was going to be super cheap. My budget is going to be around $3,000 because that's about what I spent on my first book. That includes paying for editors and cover design and a lot of services like a beta reader, ISBN numbers. And maybe for you, you have services you can trade with people. For instance, if you have something you can offer them and they can read your book and edit it for you. Or maybe you know graphic design and you can design your own book cover. That's amazing, but that's not a skill set I have. And for me, it's not necessarily about making a certain amount of money on my book. I just want to be a published author. I want to write a second book and share more names with the world. This is going to be a whole series because I'm going to take you guys along with me, but first we're going to talk about big picture stuff only. So that means, what do you do at the very beginning if you don't know where to start? Number one, you need to make a schedule. So my best friend and business manager helps me to do this with every one of my books. And so what you do is you work backwards. You pick a day that you want your book to launch and go live. So for me, it's going to be sometime in October. My birthday's in October. I love the fall and it's right before the holiday season. I think it's a great time. And I think I can get it done by October. That's key too. Do you have capacity and do you have the time? So then you work back. And yes, these sort of like outlines can be found online somewhere. I'm going to give you a rough idea of what I do, but I encourage you to sit down and really plan it out to the date what you want to do. I'm going back and I'm probably going to start pre-orders for my book in August. If I go back even more, by August 1st, I need to have everything done. So that means my editing has to be done. I have to have checked with my beta readers. My formatting has to be done. So I go back even further. By July 1st, I need to have my book in the editor's hands. If not, sooner would be great. So that means I have March to July 1st to write this book. There's other things you're going to want to put in there. Like currently, I'm talking with a book cover designer because that's something you can do simultaneously while you're writing your book. Other things, you can be reaching out to editors and formatters, and for a beta reader, which is someone who kind of gives you some information and tells you what they like about your book and maybe gives you some feedback and how to make it better, that can be family and friends. I did choose to last time pay someone. It was very affordable. So what you're going to do is start looking for these types of people in this big picture phase. And you can find them on Fiverr or Upwork. You can find them like on a Facebook group. I found somebody on TikTok for my cover design this time. Last time I used Fiverr. There's lots of different options, but what you're going to want to do is secure them and make sure that they can fit you into their schedule, especially if you're on a time crunch. Go back to that release date and decide, and then work your way back and put in your pre-order date and then put in when the book has to be completed by. When do you want to be reviewing it? When does it need to go to the editors? When do you need to be done writing it? Lay that out. My business manager puts it all in a spreadsheet for me. And then every month she checks in and says, by the end of March, I have to have 25% of my book written. That's a lot, and I need to get working on it. But another reason I'm making this series is to hold myself accountable. I want you guys to check in with me. I want to talk about this with you guys, and I really, really want to share all the struggles and the ups and downs as they come, like sharing the title here eventually, sharing the book cover design before the book comes out. So another thing you can do to encourage people to do pre-sales, like I have this like huge list of gorgeous vintage names that I've gotten from people's family trees. I might give that out as a freebie. Do you want a list of beautiful old-fashioned vintage names? That will be an incentive to get a pre-order, to get someone to purchase your book before it comes out. Last time I did not do any pre-orders or any incentives because I was making a mad dash to get my book out. I think I wanted to do it by my birthday, October 4th, and it ended up being closer to beginning of November. But I still did it. It's just that there was a lot of hiccups, like figuring out the dimensions to put into Amazon KDP. You also at this point can be looking at those sites where you could publish. So Ingram Spark is an option, as well as Amazon KDP. And you want to be thinking, do I want to do an ebook? Do I want to do paperback? Do I want to do hardcover? Or do I want to do all three? All of these things should be decided ahead of time. And when it comes to a title, remember, if you don't have a good concept or a title, you don't have a good book idea. That's something that I've taken away from many a YouTube tutorial video as well. So like, if you have this brilliant idea, but you can't figure out how to get it into a YouTube video, or you can't think of a thumbnail or what the possible title would be, it's the same for a book. You have to be able to narrow your vision, and you have to be able to come up with what exactly you want to give people. I know exactly what my book is going to be about. I've even written out all of my themes that I'm going to include in this name book. And I'm very excited about the title. I'm very excited to get started. I just really have to sit down and get working on it. But for me, all that big picture stuff is done, and that's really important. That's where you start. Because once you have that vision and you're like, okay, I know what I'm about to do, I know what I have to get done, you're able to sit down and do it. And I'm going to talk about like tips for writing next time, and how I sit down and how I actually get my book done and how I organize it. But for now, we're still talking about, what do I need at the very beginning when I decide I want to self-publish a book this year? Like, how amazing is it that there are so many ways to do it online, to help each other, and to get a book self-published that didn't even exist like 20 years ago. I want to show you guys my first book. And there are a lot of things that I kind of want to change going forward, but it's called Names Don't Have a Gender. I think the font should be bigger. I think it could be a little different. My favorite part is that this profile, this line, is very subtle and very inclusive of everyone. The whole point of the book is, I did not want a little baby in a diaper on the front in pink or blue. We're trying to encompass the fact that you can give your child the name that makes you happy, and not something that has to be feminine for a girl or has to be masculine for a boy. So that was really important to me. I don't know if I love the like matte finish. I don't know. Like, there's parts, I have it on the back too. There's parts that I really like about it and parts that I don't. Like, I'm hoping for this second book that I can have a blurb or like a review written by somebody else in the name industry, because now I have friends in this industry, and we've come so far, and like name consulting is so big now and people talk about it globally. So I'm really excited about that. Probably a new headshot photo. And then of course, like a little bio as well. But if you look, so you put your book into the, if you set your book in the bookshelf, you'll notice it's upside down. So obviously my book cover designer didn't quite know enough about how to organize the spine in the back matter and the front matter, because it's upside, like here it's fine, but then all the other book covers, if it was up like this, are going to be facing you, or all the other titles are going to be facing the other way. So that was a big bummer that it's definitely upside down. But overall, I'm really proud of it. There are the check boxes and the name origins and meanings, themes. In the end is an index so that you can see and how the names are pronounced, but you can see like every name that's in this book. And I cannot wait to share more names. Another thing that you're going to want to do is decide the price of your book ahead of time. This could be subject to change. But for me, I polled a bunch of friends, I polled some people, and I was like, okay, what would you pay for this? I wanted it to be small. I didn't want it to be a hardcover. I want this to be like a baby name book you take on your baby move. I wanted you to be able to shove it into a purse and put it anywhere, read it by your bed, bend it, and fold it. So for me, I wanted it small. I didn't want it too overwhelming with too many names. And I thought the price point of $9.99 was perfect in USD. So that's probably what I'll price my second book at. And again, that's another one of those things that it influences. If you plan to do this really ornate and gorgeous illustrations of like a children's book potentially, and it's going to be huge in hardcover, it's probably going to be closer to $17 or $20. There's so many ways to figure out what you should charge for your book. But I also really wanted to make my book the most affordable piece of advice you could get from me. So I have name services, and all of those are going to cost more than my $10 book. But if you want to know some beautiful names that I recommend, that I love, that fit with certain themes that I endorse and that I think are amazing, then you're going to want to get my book, because that is a bunch of Steph's recommendations. That's those like 1,000+ Steph name recommendations. So my second book will be about the same as well, 1,200 names or so of recommendations of names that I really love. And ideally, a lot of fresh and new ones, but also I'm not going to hold myself to like no repeats of baby names because I'm doing completely different themes. So it might help you to be like, oh, that name's from that show and it's from this TV show, but it's also a color name from here. Or, oh, that's a seasonal spring name, but it's also a French name. Regardless, I want to have new names and possibly some repeats, but enough new that you might want to purchase both of my books. Another exciting thing that I'm doing with this book is I am getting my first cover redone. So after all of that stress and of like choosing a cover and paying for that, I've decided that I would like it to be cohesive with my second book. And in doing so, I'm going to have the person who's designing my second book design my first cover as well, redesign it so I can re-upload it with the new cover. So that's kind of exciting too. And possibly people might be interested in getting both books because they'll be different with new covers. I get so excited when I talk about writing a book, even though like sometimes I feel I have this like imposter syndrome when it comes to writing a book because I'm like, well, I'm not actually writing much, I'm choosing names, but that's not true. There is going to be writing in the book, and it still takes a lot to format and come up with a concept and get it out there and do it all. So no matter what your book is, and whether it's an ebook or you want to self-publish on KDP, which is so easy, like I highly recommend using KDP, you can do it. Like I promise you, you can do it. Take this as your sign, seeing this video, to get working on your book and self-publish it, because there's like no limit. There's so many possibilities, and thanks to online, there's so many ways to get help to do these. Sometimes I like to say a lot of nothing instead of saying anything helpful. So I wanted to tell you guys the 5 things you're gonna need to do in this beginning big picture phase. So get a piece of paper, we're gonna make a checklist, I'm gonna help you. Number 1, you're gonna wanna choose that title. You know your vision, you know your concept of your book, you know what you're gonna write about, but does it translate? Can it be narrowed down into a succinct and catchy title? Figure that out. Number 2, you're gonna wanna know how the book is gonna look. So this isn't like little details of formatting. This is like, do I want paperback or hardcover or ebook? Do I want all 3 or just ebook? Am I gonna use Amazon KDP or am I gonna use Ingram Spark? Figure that out. Which leads to the next thing, start researching your editors, formatters, and book cover designers. So some people are really busy and you have to get on their schedule in advance so that once you finish that book, you can send it right off to your editor and say, here you go, I'm ready, and then they're ready. So this is a good time to start forming relationships, finding people who can do those services for you, vetting people, interviewing people. You want to get started on that process. Number 4, you want to make that book timeline schedule. Get out your Google Sheets, fill it out. Even if you're like, I want to publish in January 2024, that's still less than a year from now. You want to make sure you put that release date and work backwards, set it all up so you know when 50% of the book should be done and when 100%, when it should go to editors and when pre-sales are going to start. Make yourself that timeline. I promise it will feel so good to have a clear path and route that you can take. Finally, you're going to want to set that book price. It's a great little detail you can get started and done with at the beginning. It may change, but I think it kind of informs where and how your book is going to go. Now, all of these big picture items can be done while you're still working on the book, right? That's a huge chunk of what you have to do. But these are the things that you're going to want to get started on as soon as you decide I'm going to self-publish. Like these are step 1A. Like don't do anything else until you've done this. So I hope that I can be your supporter as well, just as you guys support me in this next self-publishing journey. And I look forward to sharing more in part 2. If you liked this video, please subscribe so you don't miss any of the parts on this no BS guide to self-publishing your nonfiction book in under a year. Thanks everybody, and happy naming.